I'm Terri Savelle, your cheerleader of dreams. Hey, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast, just push the little button right there to get consistent teaching tools and tips to live your dreams. Today I want to talk to you about the power of a firm decision. A firm decision. You know, T.D. Jakes says there's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. I heard Zig Ziglar say this one time. He said when he was just a young, aspiring speaker, he's sitting in a conference and he heard this motivational speaker make this statement. He said, "You are where you are because that's exactly where you chose to be." He said, "I was broke, in debt, and down in the dumps." But he also said it came through loud and clear that I was where I was and what I was because of my decisions. Well, our decisions, it's proof of what we've chosen in the past, where we are today. So we've got to make firm decisions about our future if we're going to live our dreams. Well, you know, I heard someone say, "I'm not lazy. I'm just highly motivated to do nothing." Well, I don't even like sitting in a lazy boy chair. So I want us to get firm about the decisions we need to make about our future. You know how sometimes, like at the beginning of the year, you might get a word for the year? Well, last year, my word was firm. And I felt like the Lord was telling me it's time to get firm. And I thought, well, that could mean a lot of things, you know? But the word firm actually means resolute, determined, fixed, not soft or yielding, does not change. In other words, you're going to conquer procrastination, you're going to do more than what's expected, and it's the opposite of being lazy. Well, Will Rogers said, even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. So we got to get up and get moving towards the plan of God for our lives. And you know, you can't wait for other people to be your cheerleader. You have to become your own best cheerleader. In fact, other people will try to talk you out of your dreams. So you have to stay focused, stay firm in your decisions. In fact, I heard this story about a woman named Catherine Lanigan. And she said, she went off to college to be a writer. That was her dream, was to be a famous writer. In her first paper, she wrote this paper in college. The professor graded it, and he gave her an F. She said, "Why did I fail this paper?" He said, "Because you can't write." She said, "What do you mean I can't write?" She said, "I was the editor of my school paper. I was on the yearbook staff. I got a scholarship to be a writer." He said, "Well, if you keep writing in my class, you're going to fail, and you're going to lose your scholarship." She said, "What am I supposed to do?" He said, "I'll make a deal with you." He said, "If you never write again and you change your major, I'll give you a passing grade." So she did. She allowed his words to influence the decisions for the rest of her life. Well, for most of her life. In fact, 15 years after she graduated, she's not writing. She's just working a job that she doesn't like. And she said one day they found out that they were filming a movie in her hometown. So her and a bunch of her friends loaded up, went to go watch this movie being filmed in a little small town in Texas. And she said all of her friends ran over to meet the celebrities, meet the movie stars. Well, she went over to talk to the writers. Well, the writer said to her, he said, "Why are you wanting to talk to me? Why aren't you meeting the actors?" She said, "Well, my dream was to always be a writer." She said, "But I gave up on that dream." He said, "I don't believe you. If you wanted to be a writer, you'd be writing." She said, "No, seriously, my professor told me I was terrible, told me I should never write again, so I quit." He said, "I'll tell you whether or not you can write." He said, "Send me what you've got." She said, "Well, I have this little manuscript I worked on, but I gave up on it." So she sent it to him. He was so amazed by it. He said, "I'm sending this to a publishing company in New York." They published her book. They also turned it into a little movie called Romancing the Stone with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. The next little book she wrote was called Jewel of the Nile, also turned into a movie with Michael Douglas and Kathleen Turner. You know, she allowed 15 years of her life to be influenced by someone else's decisions. I want you to become your own best cheerleader. Make a firm decision that you're going to do what God has put in your heart to do. In fact, you know, I was looking at this story or statistics, you know, about finances. If you need to get firm in the area of your finances and your financial goals, listen to this. The average American has more than $7,000 in credit card debt. 50% of Americans did not save 1 penny last year. 50%, not even 1 penny. 40% of Americans will spend 110% of their income this year. 65% of Americans literally live paycheck to paycheck and have no budget. Well, there was a lady who, she said she subscribed to our podcast. She started listening to the motivation consistently. And she said at 56 years old, she realized, "I have not saved a penny. and I'm looking at, Terri talked about dreams and goals, and I've never even set a goal for myself to save money. She started saving money, and by the time she was 62, she had $100,000 saved. That's a firm decision, isn't it? And then I look at this story of a lady who, she said, I started subscribing to your podcast, started getting the consistent motivation, and she said, I have struggled with my weight ever since I had my babies. I said, well, how old are your babies? And she said, they're in their 20s. I said, okay, we can do this. She said, in fact, on your podcast, you always say, stop looking at the 1 hour you don't have, look at the 20 minutes you do have, and go for a walk for 20 minutes. She said, I started doing that. I made a firm decision. She said, even my family made bets that I wouldn't keep my promise. She said, I have lost 26 pounds by a simple dose of 20 minutes every day. That's a firm decision, isn't it? And I love this story I heard. This was about a lady who, she said she finally got serious about her future because, sometimes you'll talk about going back to school to get your degree, or I hate my job, I'm miserable here, but you just stay stuck in it. And she said, I kept hearing you say these things about live your dreams, God has more for your life. The worst day in heaven would be when God gives you a glimpse of all that you could have had or done or been, but for some reason you gave up. She said, I am not going to give up on my dream. So she said she subscribed to the podcast, started listening to it consistently. And she said, for 31 years, I've been driving a bus. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. But she said, for some reason, I just knew God had something else for me. So she said, not only did I get the consistent motivation to lose weight, she said, I've lost 30 pounds, but also at 57 years old, she just got her real estate license to start selling houses in Savelle, Colorado. Is that awesome? The power of a firm decision. See, like Zig Ziglar heard, you are where you are because that's exactly where you chose to be. Well, I don't want you to come to the end of your life with nothing but regret. In fact, listen to this statistic. 50% of heart attacks happen Monday morning between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. Isn't that crazy? 85% of Americans go to work they dread doing. I don't want that to be your story, especially when God is saying, come on, just make a firm decision. Get resolute. Do what I put you on this earth to do. Let me close out with this scripture, Jeremiah 29:11. It says that God knows the plans and the purposes he has for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, to give you a future and a hope. I believe it's time to start pursuing your future by making a firm decision to live your dreams. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe by pushing that little button. Share this with your friends or family so you can get on this growth track together and live your dreams. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.